Hello and welcome to Police Beat. I'm Patrick Lacefield, Director of Montgomery County's Public Information Office. Joining me are Montgomery County Police Chief Tom Manger and Chris Voss, Director of the county's Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. Emergency preparedness is a top priority for the county. Whether it's a derecho, a possible dam breach, or an act of terrorism, our police department joins forces with those in our Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security to provide the best possible response. Thanks for joining us here today, guys.
Thank you.
Chief, can you talk about how your department interacts with Homeland Security?
Well, there's a lot of interaction between the two agencies because we have a lot of overlap in terms of our mission, especially during an emergency, whether it's a weather emergency, which are typically the most common emergencies that we deal with, or we have some other kind of either crime-associated emergency or really any type of emergency that would impact the larger community in Montgomery County. We have a lieutenant who is assigned to as our Homeland Security Director. He works very closely with emergency management. There's a lot of regional efforts as well where we overlap. The grant funding that comes into the Washington, D.C. region, the emergency managers are the decision makers oftentimes about how that grant money is distributed around the D.C. area. So we work closely in that regard as well. There's again a lot of overlap when an emergency happens. Got a lot of county agencies that really come together to make sure we have a comprehensive response.
And Chris, how about you in terms of police protocols or the like? How do you work with the police department?
Well, as the chief said, we work together a lot with the police on a lot of these emergencies. But I think probably the most interesting aspect of what we do with the police is on the planning side, especially during an event. Because sometimes you may find during an incident that if you add up all of the responsibilities of all of the departments during an emergency, it doesn't always equal everything that actually needs to be done. And so therefore, there's some activities that we need to sort of look at and assign, and sometimes those fall towards the police department, they may fall to the fire department, they might fall to health. But they're sort of a key player in that conversation to determine who is best capable to support that mission.
Now, the county has an emergency operations center where all of this comes together. Can you talk a little bit about how that's activated, who's there, how do you make a decision whether something's serious enough to put the emergency operations center into place?
Right, and that's it is our emergency operations center is at Montgomery County, and it supports not just my office but all of the departments. Even groups like municipalities participate in this as well, nonprofits like the Red Cross, police, fire, transportation, health.
Utilities?
Utilities are there,
right.
That we'll sort of work with to coordinate things like power restoration for critical facilities. I think one of the things that is also unique about the Emergency Operations Center is that I named all of these parties. If any of them have an issue or an incident where there are several departments that are involved and we really need to bring together all of those parties, it can be utilized by anybody. So I could remember a few instances in the past where we have gotten a call from a director saying, hey, listen, this is the situation, can we open up the Emergency Operations Center, bring folks in from several departments and start determining a plan of action. So while I manage it and we make sure the systems work and we sort of work to coordinate with all of those parties, in reality, it is everybody's in Montgomery County. It's a resource for all of us.
Emergency management, and Chris especially, really orchestrates a great response. I mean, what we've learned over the years is which players need to be at the table. And if you look at our Emergency Operations Center and you look, there's a seat for PEPCO, and there's a seat for police, and a seat for fire, and a seat for transportation. You have all the people that you need in that one room so that decisions can be made and actions can be taken in a very timely fashion. It's really something that I think has developed over the years in terms of trying to have a much more comprehensive and rapid response to some of these emergencies.
And it's not just emergencies, right? I recall a few years ago when President Obama was inaugurated for the first time, and there was expected to be an influx of traffic into the D.C. area. It was activated then.
And there are some people that would say enormous traffic would be an emergency in Montgomery County. But you're right. We'll activate for some instances where we really think that partnering of organizations and people and the resources in there will help alleviate a situation. So we mentioned sort of that one instance. I could remember in the morning as roadways started to back up in and around Shady Grove. We had representatives in the office where as soon as we found the bottleneck, which was some people trying to collect money for people getting into parking lots in and around the Shady Grove Metro, we immediately called them, and guess what? They suspended that charge, so this way it alleviated the mile-long backup that was occurring on roads in and around the Metro.
Now, Chief, when there's an emergency, obviously, your folks have a particular duty that they're doing at any given time, whether it's patrol, traffic, etc. How do you adjust? What's your emergency plan? In other words, let's say that you have a situation where, due to weather, you've got traffic lights out, or you've got trees down along roads. There have to be detours. There have to be other adjustments made. How do you move in that situation?
Well, we've had a lot of practice doing that, and what you do is you know, that's why you keep track every day of what resources you have, and we have a fair number of what we call traffic officers. These are police officers that you typically see on the motorcycles, but they each have cars as well that they can use if the weather is an issue, and we know what resources we have, and so we start assigning people to address things like power out. The signals are out at 100 different intersections. Right. You start making sure that you have folks that can, if we have an emergency that we need to respond to, let's say a crime in progress that we have to respond to, and we can't get to it because there's trees down in the roadway or traffic is just gridlocked. We've got folks that can work around those kinds of situations to make sure that our response is what it should be. But I think what really I think makes a lot of us proud in Montgomery County is the seamless nature of emergency management, police, fire, health, transportation, how we know that each one of us has a piece of this responsibility, but that we all have to work together in a coordinated fashion.
Right.
So that's what really, when an emergency strikes, we know what resources we have, we can deploy them to where we need them, but we also know that we need to be in support of fire and health and transportation, and how best to really contribute to the really comprehensive solution to whatever emergency we're trying to deal with.
Chris, your office was set up, I think, in the wake of 9/11. From both of you, how has the world changed in terms of emergencies and Homeland Security since that terrible day?
I think the office was actually part of the fire department before September 11th, and certainly their mission has changed after that. And I think it's because one of the things that they often find during emergencies is someone that has sort of analyzed and looked at emergencies over the course of the last few decades. The police department does a great job from doing their piece, in the fire department and the health. But where they saw sometimes shortfalls, it was sort of across all of those parties. And I think that emergency management and Homeland Security has become a much larger discipline because we want to make sure that each of these entities are making decisions with the same information. It wasn't that police and fire wanted to do two separate things in certain instances. It was that sometimes were making those decisions based on different information they had. By making sure all of the departments have information, as well as an understanding of the roles and responsibilities of what some of their partners may be doing, you suddenly see, as the chief pointed out, it becomes a more seamless nature. And as well as departments don't start stepping on each other's toes during an emergency. We don't need 3 departments going and knocking on people's doors, seeing if they're okay. Let's just make sure we cover that one task the most efficient way that we possibly can do it.
You talk about Homeland Security. For us, we look at it as hometown security. There are issues in terms of terrorist activities, and certainly that's a concern everywhere in this country. And we make sure that we have folks plugged into the different intelligence organizations, the FBI and all the other intelligence organizations that can provide us with information that affects Montgomery County, and that's why it's so important to me. And it's always nice to hear about what's going on, in other countries and what's happening in New York or Los Angeles. But the fact is, what we pay most attention to is what's going to impact Montgomery County, and so we make sure we have folks plugged in so we have information, and then sharing that information with our partners is important as well. And I think that, as Chris talks about, making sure we all have the same information so that we can do what needs to be done. But I'll tell you, it comes down to this, and that is we still rely on the public's help to make sure that we've got that hometown security. The old adage, see something, say something.
Right.
And so when we still rely on folks, if they see something suspicious or that just doesn't seem right, to call us so that we can investigate to see whether we've got a problem or not.
Now, one of the resources we have in the county, I know, is Alert Montgomery, which sends out alerts to hundreds of thousands of people's devices, whether it's about weather or traffic or extraordinary events. Can you talk a little bit about Alert Montgomery and how important it is, and also how people can get a piece of it?
Sure. Much the same way we want departments to have information to make educated decisions, we want the community to have that information and make educated decisions for them and their families. After the events such as 9/11, after events that we've seen like the derecho, in absence of some of that information, people did not make sometimes the best decisions for them. And so Alert Montgomery is a system where people can sign up their pagers, their emails, their cell phones, their smart devices, and we will push information about different topics. It's been very much tailored over the course of years, where we want you to receive as much information you want, or sometimes if you don't want, let's say, weather, if you don't want traffic and you only want information about, let's say, health emergencies, you can pick and choose categories that exist. With the weather now, you can even pick blackout windows. So if you don't want a weather alert after midnight, you just create a blackout window so you won't get those alerts at those times that are inconvenient for you. And I think that information for everybody in this world, there's information everywhere.
Right.
We're trying to make sure that it's both targeted for you and helpful at the same time. We don't want to desensitize you by sending you so many messages that after a while you sort of stop reading them. And that's why we've created the system we have.
And how do people get onto the system, Alert Montgomery?
They could register. If you looked into any web browser and typed in Alert Montgomery, it comes right up. Or if you went to our website with the Montgomery County website and OEMHS, you'll see on the left side, a whole list of options, and one of those is Alert Montgomery. You click on that and register. One device, two devices, different locations in the county that we'll notify you about. So this weekend, we had one or two gas main breaks in the county. We notified everybody within a quarter of a mile of each of those breaks that what was going on and what they can do to be safe.
Final question here. Communication is critical. Some of the post 911 critiques, fire, police, etc., were not able to talk to each other. Have we done better?
We're doing tremendously better. Not only during an emergency, the communication, the ability for one of my cops to just switch a channel and be able to talk to other jurisdictions. That's we're light years ahead of where we were. But we also have great communication between agencies as well.
Right. Well, I appreciate you all being here. I'm Patrick Lacefield with Montgomery County Police Chief Tom Manger and Director of the county's Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, Chris Voss. If you haven't already, please sign up for Alert Montgomery and review the emergency preparedness information available at www.montgomerycounty.md.gov/OEMHS. Thanks for watching, and join us again next month on another edition of Montgomery County Police Beat.
Idling your engine gets 0 miles per gallon. Zilch, nada. Why sit idling at backed up drive-through windows? Get out, get your food, and get going. Avoid unnecessary idling. You'll save time, gas, money, and reduce air pollution. Now that's a green idea.